Oh, I'm in my bedroom. No, yeah, I'm in my bedroom.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, just for your awareness, is this attached? Yeah, this is what's attached. So, just so you're aware, I am recording everything, video and audio. So that's
Okay. Unfortunately, the audio is probably going to have some in it.
That's fine, but do I have your permission to do that?
Sure.
Okay. So the reason I chose you was because I'm writing a story on basically juxtaposing education from 30 years ago to now. Basically the early 2000s to 2025. So I'm just going to be asking you questions surrounding education, your opinions on things. Don't feel like this is going to go anywhere other than my professor, so be freely willing to answer anything that you feel comfortable answering.
Okay.
Alright, I just have a few preliminary questions that to start the interview, just to make sure I have all my information correct. What is your name and how do you spell it?
It's Karen Maltby, KarenMaltby.
Excellent, thank you. And then, what is your contact information if I have any follow-up questions?
Okay. You want phone number?
Yeah, phone number, email, whatever you're comfortable giving me.
Okay. 804-363-2661.
Excellent. And then, so I know currently you are in Virginia. Where else have you lived, and have you participated in education in any other state besides Virginia?
Well, I've also lived in New Jersey. I only participated in education in New Jersey as a student.
Okay. But you haven't done any teaching there?
No, only in Virginia.
Okay. And then what specifically motivated you to go into the educational field?
Truthfully, that was not where I was headed. I was attempting to get into the occupational physical therapy field, and I was neglected to be informed the minimal amount of students they take every other semester, and 28 was the number, and I was application 351.
So not even close.
So, I'm sorry?
I said, so not even close.
No. So I spoke to an advisor at length, and based on his knowledge of me and what I had accomplished in his classes and stuff, he suggested education.
And then it just snowballed from there, and here we are. What has it been, 80 years now?
Has it been what?
I said, and now here we are. What has it been, about 80 years?
8 years since what?
I said 80, but...
Oh, I'm sorry.
So going off of that, so obviously your advisor helped you move into the educational field. How did you then move on from the educational field into the special needs field? Since you are...
Well, I got my undergraduate degree in English, and when I was looking to go into the master's program, just talking to people and what I wanted to do, I didn't want to just go into regular education, because I wanted to do something where I really felt I could see a difference. And after talking to friends in the field, family in the field, and again my advisor, he suggested special education. So that was when I pursued my master's in special education.
And was that its own degree, special needs? Like you said, you got your master's in special education. Is that its own specific field for a degree?
Yes.
Oh, cool. And so, just moving into the point of this interview. So, when you started teaching, what was the toughest obstacle that you faced?
Probably parents.
Why is that?
Because I had parents that point blank would ask me when I was going to cure their kid. And I would have to explain to them that my job was to teach them how to deal with their disabilities and to manage life and learn as much as they could. There was no cure for anything that was wrong with them.
Okay, going off of that, just real quick, have you seen a change in that line of thinking? Because obviously, education on that kind of subject has become more understanding on the different the different requirements of things that cause special needs. So, have you noticed that parents that were asking you beforehand, like, "Hey, when are you going to cure my kid?" Has that diffused at all since then? Like as technology has progressed and understanding of special needs has progressed?
I think it has, but I've also seen the pendulum swing in the other way. And in the last few years, I've witnessed where administration and stuff is, how to put this politically correct, they're not fulfilling, in my opinion, fulfilling all of the needs that special needs children have. They're trying to put them in a, like, it's kind of falling back to everybody is in the same circle. Like, they expect exactly the same things out of special needs kids as general needs kids, and even within the general population, they don't all learn the same, they don't all have the same needs, and even if they're not identified as special needs, some kids just have more needs than others. But they are starting to not do as much for special education as they used to.
Okay. And then, do you believe, what do you believe the cause of that shift has been?
I think it's all political.
In what sense?
I think that some areas don't want to spend the money that is required for special needs kids, because some of them require the more physical bodies, like aides or just more special ed teachers. They're cutting back on a lot of that. One of the biggest changes that I've seen in the last couple of years is in state testing. There used to be different testing that you could give to kids within special needs where they were accommodated for whatever their need was. And they're doing away with all of those alternative tests and expecting special needs kids to just take the exact same state tests as everybody else. And it's not possible.
And are you referencing the SOLs?
In Virginia, that's what they are, yes.
Okay. So, do you believe there should be a different standard of test, like a different SOL for special needs? And then, like you mentioned earlier, that it's kind of a spectrum where there's some kids that are developmentally challenged more than others. So if they can't all take the same test, what would that look like for testing these kids that are on a spectrum? How do you even come across that with a specific test just to see where they're at, if it's such a broad spectrum and you're not able to really magnify one over the other?
So I can give you an example. I had a couple of kids that were on the autism spectrum, and then I had a couple of kids that were just, their label was learning disability. They either had a a major reading disability or a math disability. They were capable of taking the standard SOL test. They might not pass it with a high score, but they could maintain and hold enough information that they were no different than just some of the slower or lower kids in the general population. But then I had a couple of kids that were on the autism spectrum that were they weren't completely nonverbal, but weren't very verbal. They had a lot of issues, and their whole learning was so different that to sit them down at a computer and tell them they had to take a state test was ridiculous. So we used to be able to do an alternative test where they could show what they know by either using pictures or doing some multiple choice things, or like they used to create diagrams and stuff, but they could do what they knew and what they were capable of. They're doing away with that. There's also been some kids that are multiple handicapped that, I mean, they're basically teaching them life skills in school, but they were supposed to be sitting down at a computer. And I can think of one child in particular who had cerebral palsy and did not really have any function with her own hands, couldn't feed herself or anything, but she was expected to take a state test, which is absolutely ridiculous. And since this is between me, you, and your professor, I will tell you that as a teacher, I know parents can opt their kids out of state testing, but we were point blank told we can't tell parents that.
And was that coming from your specific school's administration, or was that coming from higher up?
No, it came from higher up. It was reiterated by our administration, but I can also tell you that at the cost of my job, I did tell parents.
So, legally standing, that parents were allowed to opt out of the SOLs, or the standardized testing.
Yep.
But you were told not to say anything, and you could have been fired for giving a perfectly legal answer to, am I able to opt out of this?
Yep.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why would that have been the case if it was an option put on the table?
Because when a parent opts their kid out, it counts as a failure on the school's count.
So even though the test isn't administrated, the test isn't passed or failed, they just count it as a failure regardless of whether it was taken or not.
If you have 50 kids in a grade, say I'll pick third grade, okay? Third grade takes a reading and a math SOL. And if there's 50 kids in the third grade and 10 of them opt out, you're starting out with 10 failures right off the bat.
So, well, that raises a different question. So does the legal document saying that parents are allowed to opt out, obviously the testing is to base off of funding for schools, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So is it the legal documents that are saying if a child opts out, it counts towards a failure, as opposed to just they don't want you to because they don't want it to be a failure? So what makes it a failure? Is it legal documentation, or is it the people that are doing the funding, which I guess would be the same people, which is the government?
I've never seen a legal document that says anything to that effect. I honestly don't know if there is one. I know that if a parent wants to opt their child out, they have to write a letter to the school saying, my child is not going to take the SOLs, sign it and date it, and that's pretty much it. And usually they just keep them home the day of their testing. I've never seen anything, I've never been shown a piece of paper that says, you can't tell a parent that. I've only been told that.
Okay, so it's kind of like
And
it's kind of like an elbow in the ribs type of situation where, hey, this is
like one
this
of
is
those
something you
unspoken
could
rules
say.
that- I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, I'm sorry. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, it's one of those unspoken rules that we're told about and we're not supposed to talk about. But I will tell you that in the last couple of years, with all this been happening with special education, I know for a fact, talking to other teachers that are still in the system, that more teachers are putting their jobs on the line because they're telling parents, you need to opt your child out. And they're doing it.
And is that specifically because of the fact that they have made it more restrictive for special needs students, where as opposed to it used to be you had the option to do a different version of testing, it's now more so you only can take the SOL.
That's exactly why.
So
when they took away all the alternative tests is when teachers decided to bite the bullet and say, tell parents you need to opt your kid out.
To your knowledge, has that actually had an effect on education in special needs? Like, have teachers actually lost their jobs over this?
No one has so far that I know of. I know two specific teachers that I worked with that have told parents. And one of them, when she was hesitant about it, I said, I'll go talk to this parent. Because we have one child in particular that we knew. One is a child with Down syndrome. She's never going to be able to pass an SOL. And they were going to make her sit through these tests, which would only just frustrate this kid. And I offered to go talk to the parent, and she said, nope, I'll do it. And she did. And I'll give you an example of how insane the state tests are. So I don't know if you remember or not, but I had a student with brain cancer.
His name was, it started with a B, right?
No, it was a D.
I'm blanking on his name, but I do remember him, and I remember going to his funeral.
Okay. So he was on homebound. I was his homebound teacher. And I was going to do his homebound one day, and my assistant principal at the time told me that I needed to inform this kid's mother that she was going to be coming the following week when I did homebound, because they were going to give him his SOL test at home, and there had to be a proctor there, so she was going to come. This child was at home because he was dying of brain cancer, and yet they were going to try and make him take the SOL test because they needed the number. That was the first time I told a parent. And his mother was like, oh, hell no. And she called the school the next day and said that I had let her know that the assistant principal was coming by the following week to administer the SOL test. And she said she would not set foot in that woman's house, and she would call the police for her trespassing if she tried. She said her son was not going to take that test.
And I recall the student that you're referring to. At this point, was he like still able to like function as a student?
Yes, he was able to function as a student, but all the treatments that they were giving him for his brain cancer were making him so sick, which is why he was homebound. And
they still, regardless of that, wanted to administrate the SOL for this student.
Yep.
That's insane. That's insane. I've never heard this story before. That's crazy. How old was he at this time? You remember?
He was in 4th or 5th grade. I forget. I think he was in 5th grade.
Wow. That's something that's very interesting, because I've never heard that be a thing where. So knowing that now you can opt out of SOLs, as opposed, so there's other things you can opt out of in the educational aspect. So you can obviously do a religious exemption for like vaccines, or you can do a, I don't even think it's a religious exemption, I believe, but it's an exemption for like the sex ed and stuff like that. Juxtapose those opting out of the things to the SOLing or to the standardized testing. How is it that one is seen as the negative straight out the gate and one is seen as not necessarily positive, but it's neutral as opposed to the other one? So why is it that these exemptions, some exemptions are looked at as neutral and this one is immediately seen as a negative?
It's because it's tied to money.
Are the other two not also tied to money?
No, like family life, the sex ed you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the correct term. I was looking for family life.
Okay, so a family can opt out of having their kids go to family life. There's nothing tied to that other than the people that come to the school to teach the lessons. I think it's a couple of days for lower grades and it's a whole week or something for the upper 2 or 3 grades. But there's no end product, if you want to say. With the state testing, it's tied to where the school ends up being. Like, they compare every school in the county to every other school and who has the higher scores, and the state sets scores you have to meet. And then it all comes back, it's tied to funding.
So is there a way to, as an educator, to change that so it's not tied to education? Because obviously we want what's best for the student, especially you as the educator. So is there a way to bring about legal change where it's not tied to money, so it's not viewed, or at least at the bare minimum, make it so it's not an automatic failure, maybe as like a non-applicable choice as opposed to a failure, so that way it's not looked at as a negative light from the administration, from the government, from the people that are funding schools and everything.
I mean, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. I will tell you that when I started giving the state testing, we were told back then that, like, so the students that I had, the majority of them were below what's considered grade level. So, like, if I might have had a 5th grade student that was only reading on a 3rd grade level. And we were told at one time that they were going to adjust the test so that, like, a student like the ones that I had that could read, could understand, but were just not at their level, we were told they would get a test at the level that they were capable of taking it. That never happened. And when we questioned it back then, they kept saying, oh, it'll happen. Well, it never happened. Then we get given some alternative tests, which now they've taken all those away. So it's like they went the wrong direction as far as I'm concerned. But I don't think, I know that in all the years I've taught, every time a teacher has questioned SOLs and tried to do something, it's like they don't listen to the people that are teaching the kids. We just basically get told, this is the way it is, deal with it.
Gotcha.
So whoever sets this state testing, and just from meetings that I've been in and things that I've been told, the majority of people that create those tests weren't even educators.
I do remember that being kind of a bit of a controversy where the people that made the tests weren't educators, and I remember the educators pushing back on that initially, saying if this test is going to exist, it needs to be made by the people that are actually administering the test. What, am I correct in remembering that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so wow, that was completely interesting. So going back on topic, just trying to again, juxtapose education from now to then. One of the earliest things that I remember a president having an impact on education was, at least in the past 25, 30 years, was No Child Left Behind from the George Bush era.
Okay.
Okay. So in your opinion, what was your view of that time frame, and what was its effect on education overall?
Well, all the people that I taught with, nobody ever left a child behind. I always felt that was kind of a, I don't know who you're talking about or where you're talking about. And I'm sure in some inner cities or whatever, there were issues. But then again, the problem becomes when you have a place where teachers don't feel safe or they're being way underpaid, the kids aren't getting the education they should get. So maybe that's the kids that they were talking about being left behind. But I would say for the majority of educators, they do everything they can to educate those kids, and they don't intend or try to leave anybody behind. So that was kind of I think a slap in the face to 90% of the educators out there.
Okay. So do you believe it really didn't have an impact at all on schooling whatsoever, or at best minimum?
I think at best minimal.
Okay. And then a more current issue arising around education is the Department of Education has been defunded, basically. How do you feel in regards to that? Can you hear me? Sorry.
No, Dad came in and turned his phone on and I couldn't hear him, sorry.
I apologize. So a more current thing that's taking place with education is the defunding of the Department of Education. Do you believe that will have a substantial effect overall, short-term, long-term, on education? Why or why not?
Okay, so you're talking about the defunding of the Federal Department of Education?
Yes.
So my problem with that is, why shouldn't every state be able to educate their kids and do what's right for them? Why? There's two. I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but one of the things that we've talked about here is like the place where we used to live had so many layers of educational government that people were getting paid to do job, like 10 people would be getting paid to do the same job. Whereas here, we have a county that covers, how many districts? 5? I'm sorry, Steve. Okay, so it covers 27 schools. We have one superintendent for all those schools. And that's like Mechanicsville, Hanover, Ashland, Atlee. I can't remember all. I think it's either 5 or 6 districts where you go to the state we used to live in. Those 5 districts would each have their own superintendent, their own assistant superintendent. It's like they just start. It's unnecessary. So all of that money could be going into education. Excuse me. But it's not. It's paying people. So the federal government is kind of doing the same thing. They're taking money from every state, and then they're saying, well, if you meet X, Y, and Z, we'll give you some of your money back. Why should that money just stay here?
So do you believe that the state Department of Education should also be reformed as well?
Well, it just depends on how many layers are within the state. I don't think it would hurt to have everything looked at. But like I said, think about where I live. If one superintendent can cover 5 districts and do it well, And yet another state has 5 districts, and every district has their own superintendent, and they're comparable in size. They're not, it's not necessary is what I'm saying.
Understood. So, okay, just on that same regard, if there was something in the realm of education that you could go back and change to impact everything for the better, what do you think that would be? Just because, I mean, we obviously have the gift of hindsight now. Is there something that you would either have not enacted at the time, or is there something overall that you would have changed in the aspect of education to make it better?
Well, I think when I first started teaching, teachers had more freedom to pick a subject. Okay, in Virginia, they teach a lot of Virginia history. Jamestown is one of the things.
I went to many of field trips there.
Yep. Well, when I first started teaching, if you were teaching Jamestown and kids got excited about it, you could expand on it and teach more about it, or maybe delve deeper into it. Nowadays, the schools are given a plan at the beginning of the year, and every subject that is on the SOL is given a timeline. Now, I don't remember what the timeline is, but say Jamestown might be 2 weeks now. You start on such and such a date, you end on such and such a date. If the kids are excited about it and want to learn more, it's too bad, so sad. It has to end on this date, and that's it. There's no freedom in a teacher's ability. And when you have kids excited about something, that's when you should expand on it. Teachers don't have that ability anymore. They are tied to a timeline that each county sets up, and they have no say in it. And it's for every aspect of the curriculum.
So, do you believe that's because of, again, going back to the money trail? Do you think that that's just because of money tying everything to the SOL, which directly impacts funding? Do you think they've decided to go a more strict route to adhere to passing the SOL as opposed to actually educating students?
I think so. And if you ask any administrator, they will tell you we don't teach to the test. But I feel like that's an absolute lie. Yes, they do. That's all they do anymore.
Just a talking point that they throw out there to make it sound good?
Yeah. But that's what, when you come in with a strict timeline that says you have to do this, start this on this date, end it on this date. Start this on this date, end it on this date. And the way that kids find their passion is when they get excited about something in school. For some kids, it might be something they're reading about. For some kids, it might be something in science, something in history. There's kids in math. And if you aren't allowed to delve into that more, basically what you're telling the kid is, oh, well, I'm sorry you like this, but we got to move on. And you shut them off.
Interesting. And then just final couple questions. Overall, do you believe education is on the right track since you originally started in the field? Or do you think it's on a downward track?
I think you have a lot of teachers out there that are fighting to do what's right for the kids. But I think somewhere along the line, too many administrators, politicians, whatever you want to call them, excuse me, have forgotten it's all about educating the kids and doing what's best for them. But it's become where we have to have the highest scores and we have to meet these, state standards and whatnot. And I'm not saying that standards are bad. There needs to be something to reach for. But I think they've become the end-all be-all.
I think good, basing off of your answers, I would agree with that. And then final question. Is there anything I didn't cover that you believe needs to be said? Like, do you have anything on your mind that you want to get off your chest? Is there anything just in your line of thinking that you want to put out to the ether?
I think you pretty much got it all. I wish that there was still that ability for teachers to have that freedom when something is sparked in a kid to pursue it. And I think that's just few and far between anymore. And I don't know what current dropout rates are whatever, but it would be interesting to look at kids coming out of school and how many who used to have a passion, even like for math or for history or whatever, how many of them are coming out feeling that way now?
I would imagine it's significantly lower than it used to be.
I would believe so too.
That would be something interesting for the next interview we do. being able to look at those numbers and see what they say. All right. Well, I very much appreciate your time, Mrs. Maltby. I think your insight on this topic has been very useful, and I greatly appreciate you. You've given me your information at the beginning of the interview, so if I have any follow-up questions, I can reach out to you. And again, thank you for your time.
No problem. Glad to do it.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.